Miles Parker sat in the municipal courthouse, fingers tracing the cold wood of the bench, his palms sweaty, heart racing. The overhead lights above him pulsed like sirens, sharp and unforgiving. Why do families turn a blind eye to the truth? The murmur of lawyers buzzed around him, but beneath that sound was something deeper. Betrayal. He glanced across the room at Savannah Reed, his sister, the golden child. Her lips barely moved, but her gaze was a knife, sharp and calculating. Was love really enough to overcome favoritism? The judge's eyes locked onto Miles with a chilling focus, and his vision blurred. His body knew that feeling all too well, a warning, his pulse quickening. In this moment, the air felt thick, weighed down with secrets and unspoken pain. How far will someone go when everything you need becomes a weapon against you? I've been living with epilepsy since I was 15. For years, I was the problem in my family, always the inconvenience, the one who needed extra attention. My younger sister, Savannah, was always the favorite. While I struggled with my condition, she played the role of the perfect, selfless daughter. But things shifted when our grandma passed away and left me a larger inheritance to cover my medical bills. That's when Savannah started stealing my medication. My parents? They dismissed my worries. Sharing is caring, they said. What I didn't know was that the next time I'd have a seizure, it would happen in the middle of a municipal courthouse. Everything would change. You won't believe what the judge uncovered. Keep watching to find out how the truth finally came to light, and my family couldn't ignore it any longer. It all started in high school. I was sitting in my science lab when suddenly, the room began to spin. The fluorescent lights above me flickered, unbearably bright, and then darkness. When I woke up, I was in an EMT van, terrified, confused. The neurologist confirmed what I feared: epilepsy. From then on, life was never the same. I had a backpack full of medication and a routine built around it. My parents treated it like an inconvenience, annoyed that it was something they had to deal with. "Try not to mention it," my mom would say before family events. "It makes people uncomfortable." But Savannah, she figured out how to exploit my condition. When I was too tired from my meds, my parents would scold me for not doing chores. Meanwhile, Savannah would swoop in, volunteering to take over, earning praise for her selflessness. Family movie nights? I'd be drugged up on meds, and when I'd pass out on the couch, my dad would sigh, "Maybe you should just go to bed." Savannah? She'd take my spot without a second thought. But Grandma June saw right through it. She was the only one who truly understood. It all started with a box. Nothing fancy, but a wooden box with a lock that had been with me for years. Inside, my life, neatly organized, my medication, the one thing that kept me from slipping into the chaos of my condition. When I moved out after college, it was the only thing I took with me from Grandma June's house. She was my rock. She understood epilepsy in a way no one else did. She'd always say, "Never apologize for taking care of yourself." But my family? They didn't get it. Then there was Savannah, my younger sister, the perfect one. I was the burden, the one who needed all the attention, the one who was never quite enough. She had a way of twisting everything to make herself look like the saint. While I was dealing with my condition, she was out there collecting praise for doing the right thing, doing everything I couldn't. But then Grandma passed. I thought it was just grief weighing me down, but when I found myself alone in Grandma's kitchen after her funeral, holding that wooden box, things began to shift. Mr. Harrison, the family lawyer, walked in and dropped a bomb. "Your grandma left specific instructions regarding her estate. The majority of her assets are to be divided between you and Savannah, but not equally. She allocated 60% to you for your continued medical care." It hit me like a slap in the face. I knew Grandma had my back, but 60%? What did she know that I didn't? Why was there so much more at stake than just medicine and bills? I rifled through the old journals Grandma had kept, pages filled with her observations, her love, and her support. But there, buried deep inside one journal, was a different handwriting. It was Savannah's. The words on the page weren't what I expected. My sister, the one who seemed to have it all together, was terrified. Terrified of losing her place as the favorite. Her secret? She had been manipulating the whole situation, pushing me further into the shadows to protect her status. She'd been playing a game I didn't even know existed. I could feel the weight of those words sink into my chest. The betrayal, the lies, the truths that had been buried in plain sight. They'd been there all along, but it wasn't just neglect. It was calculated. The scent of the rain outside mingled with the dust in the kitchen, and I realized, my whole life, everything I thought I knew, was a lie. And now, with Grandma gone, I was left to pick up the pieces of a family that had never really seen me. Not truly. Everything had changed. And this? This was just the beginning. He paused, adjusting his glasses. She was quite specific about wanting to provide you with financial security, given your health considerations. A rush of gratitude for Grandma's foresight washed over me, quickly followed by dread. How would my family react to this news? The moment Mr. Harrison gathered everyone to explain the will, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. It felt colder, tense. My mother's face hardened, her jaw tightening. My father, usually so composed, kept clearing his throat as if to dispel an uncomfortable truth. Then there was Savannah Reed, sitting across from me. I watched her expression morph from shock to something unsettling, a darker, calculating gaze. "That cannot possibly be what Mom intended," she scoffed. "Miles Parker has always exaggerated his condition for attention. Mom must have been confused when she made these arrangements." Mr. Harrison remained professional but firm. June Walker was of completely sound mind. We discussed her wishes at length, and she was quite clear about her reasoning. That evening, as family members ambled out of Grandma's house for the last time, I felt a presence behind me. Savannah Reed cornered me in the hallway. "You think you've won, don't you?" she whispered, a hint of malice layering her words. "Always playing the sick card. Well, this isn't over." In the weeks that followed, I began noticing small items disappearing from my apartment after family visits. A favorite mug, a cherished photo of Grandma and me, trivial things that left me questioning my own memory. Was I becoming forgetful due to stress? Then, one morning, as I opened my medication container, panic gripped my chest. 3 pills were missing from the weekly organizer. I recounted my routines, certain they had been there just the night before. When I called my parents, apprehension shadowed my every word. "Has anyone been in my apartment?" I asked, careful to keep my tone neutral. My mother sighed on the other end. "Are you accusing Savannah Reed? She dropped by to bring you dinner yesterday because she was worried about you. Is this how you thank her?" "I'm just asking if someone might have moved my medication," I clarified, feeling the walls close in. I was grasping at straws, but the shadows of doubt were creeping in deeper. With every secret Savannah Reed whispered, furthering her manipulation, the truth felt less like a bright light and more like a toxic fog enveloping everything I held dear. And with Grandma gone, I was left to decipher the tangled emotions and hidden agendas. My life, my very perception of family, was it built on lies? I had to know the real reason behind my sister's sudden coldness. It was time to uncover the truth. You ever feel like you're caught in a constant storm? Well, that's exactly where Miles Parker found himself, sitting cross-legged on the cold linoleum of the bathroom, staring at a lineup of plastic pill bottles. The harsh fluorescent lights buzzed overhead while the distant clatter of dishes downstairs seemed to mock him. The bitterness from years of feeling ignored burned like acid on his tongue. Shadows of dismissive comments echoed in his chest as he remembered the sharp scent of rubbing alcohol. Grandma June, humming softly, tended to his scraped knee while Savannah Reed's envious glances lingered. "You always play the sick card, don't you?" she had spat one day. But what if she was the one playing games? Just when he thought he was gaining ground, a court date looming over him, a fight for recognition, Savannah Reed struck from the shadows. Was she really showing concern with a warm dinner, or just trying to secure her place as the family favorite? With Grandma gone, things had gone darker. Every visit felt like entering a minefield. Items vanished from his apartment, stirring doubt in his mind. Was he losing grip on reality? When his medication went missing again, panic tightened its grip. How could he prove to his parents that something wasn't right? "Has anyone been in my apartment?" he asked, carefully balancing his tone. "Are you accusing Savannah Reed?" his mother snapped back. His heart sank. It wasn't just about meds. His health was under siege too. As he moved through life, every small detail became a heavy burden. After securing his prescriptions in a locked safe, he thought he had found peace. But Sunday dinners at his parents' felt like walking into a lion's den. "You look tired," his mother remarked, a sharp edge to her voice. Couldn't she see he was fighting for survival? The kitchen smelled of pot roast. The meal meant to celebrate but tasted like betrayal. Each spoon in Savannah Reed's hand felt like an accusation hanging in the air. Was anyone even listening? Every moment sat on a precipice of family drama and mental strain. As the tension thickened, the resolve in Miles' heart began to crystallize. This fight wasn't just about inheritance or being wronged. It was about stepping out of the shadows and reclaiming his life. In the swirling fog of betrayal, he was ready to confront Savannah Reed for the sake of fairness, and for the memory of Grandma June, who had guided him through the darkness. Would he finally uncover the truth behind the manipulation? Or would he remain ensnared in a web of deceit? The battle for his health and his legacy had just begun. I wondered what accomplishment of my sister's we would be celebrating tonight. "Savannah Reed got a promotion at work," my father announced right on cue, junior account executive now. Savannah Reed appeared from the living room wearing a new dress and a smile that did not quite reach her eyes. "Nothing fancy," she said with practiced modesty, "just recognition for hard work." Throughout dinner, the conversation revolved around Savannah Reed's achievement, the challenges of her new position, and how she had always been destined for success. I nodded and smiled in all the right places while simultaneously calculating how soon I could politely leave. My medication schedule meant I needed to take my evening dose by 8:30. I need to head out around 8. I mentioned during a lull in conversation. "I have an early client meeting tomorrow." My mother frowned. "But I made your favorite apple pie for dessert. Surely you can stay a little longer." "I really cannot. I have my medication schedule to keep." My father put down his fork with a clatter. Always the medication, always the schedule. Life requires flexibility. Miles Parker, epilepsy does not. I replied, trying to keep my voice level. Missing doses can trigger seizures. "I think what Dad means," Savannah Reed interjected smoothly, "is that sometimes family time should take priority. We hardly see you anymore." Before I could respond, Savannah Reed stood up. "I will get coffee. Miles Parker, would you help me?" In the kitchen, as Savannah Reed measured coffee grounds, she asked casually, "So, how are you really doing with Grandma gone and everything?" "I miss her," I said honestly. She understood what living with epilepsy is like. "Must be hard," Savannah Reed murmured her back to me as she reached for mugs. "Having to manage everything yourself now." Something in her tone made me uneasy. "I am managing fine." "Of course you are," she turned smiling. "Hey, I left my phone in my purse in the guest room. Would you grab it while I finish this?" The room was quiet as I stood in my closet, the hum of the fridge the only sound breaking the tension. I held the pill organizer, my pulse quickening. 5 pills gone. No sign of forced entry. No sign of anything. Just the strange, creeping sense of something wrong. Savannah Reed's visit. It wasn't about a forgotten scarf. Something was off. I could feel it. Savannah Reed, my sister, had always been the golden child. It was her success, her triumphs, her constant wins that got the spotlight. Me? I was the one who got lost in the cracks. I wasn't some overachiever. I was just trying to manage life, health, family, everything. But now, it seemed like the one person who should have been my ally was quietly sabotaging me. And just like that, it hit me. It wasn't just neglect anymore. This was calculated. Savannah was playing her game. I wasn't just fighting for fairness. I was fighting my own sister. The text came the next morning. Left my scarf at your place last week. Coming by to get it. I had no memory of her leaving a scarf, but I brushed it off. It wasn't until later that night when I came home to an unsettling quiet, no chaos, just a shift in the atmosphere, that I knew something was wrong. 5 pills missing. 5. Enough to send me into a seizure. I couldn't afford to buy them out of pocket. I called the pharmacy, desperation creeping in. Without insurance, they said, it's over $400. I couldn't breathe. My own family was doing this to me. At dinner with Mom and Dad, I decided it was time to speak up. Someone's been taking my epilepsy medication, I said, my hands clenching under the table. Mom froze. What are you talking about? I can't keep missing doses. Someone's stealing them. 5 gone today. I need them. Dad's face darkened. He didn't respond right away. It was the silence that told me everything. The truth had sunk in. But this wasn't just about my health anymore. This was about survival, about standing up to the people who should have been there for me. And Savannah? Well, she was going to find out that I wasn't just some overlooked, misunderstood kid anymore. This battle wasn't over. It was just beginning. Heavy silence blanketed the dining room. The clatter of the casserole spoon echoed through the thick tension. Miles Parker felt every gaze piercing him, disbelief heavy enough to choke on. Savannah Reed, his sister, was hovering nearby, her lips trembling as if she was wounded, but her eyes glinted with something sharp, predatory. June Walker, their grandma, adjusted her glasses, the weight of the moment pressing down on her. Miles Parker fought against the rising tide of doubt in his chest. Did he really have the courage to confront this? Or was he about to set off a bombshell that would change everything? For one breathless moment, the world paused. Who would break first? Are you sure you didn't miscount or take them without remembering? Mom's voice sliced through the air. I keep careful track. This is my health we're talking about. Miles Parker shot back, heart racing. A dramatic sigh escaped his mother. And I suppose you think Savannah took them? Why would she want your medication? Miles Parker hesitated, but the pieces fell into place. The timing matches up with her visits. Savannah glided into the dining room, casserole dish in hand, wearing an innocent expression. What matches up with my visits? She asked, feigning confusion. Mom explained Miles Parker's accusations, and Savannah's face morphed from surprise to faux hurt, like she was putting on a show. How could you think that? Savannah's voice quavered skillfully. I would never mess with your health, Miles Parker. Never. Miles Parker pressed. Then how do you explain the missing pills? Dad slammed his hand on the table, making the dishes rattle. I cannot believe you would accuse your sister of something so serious without any proof. Sharing is caring, Mom added, a smile plastered on her face as if nothing was wrong. If you're so worried, maybe Savannah needs support too. Stop being so dramatic. Dramatic, Miles Parker echoed incredulously. Epilepsy is not something I can turn off. Missing medication can lead to life-threatening seizures. There you go again. Mom rolled her eyes, dismissing his pain. Savannah reached across the table, squeezing his hand with a practiced concern that made Miles Parker sick. I'm sure we'll find your missing pills. Maybe they fell in your apartment. He yanked his hand away, feeling a wave of nausea from the gaslighting. The rest of the dinner turned into a grotesque performance, Savannah playing the concerned sister while their parents beamed with pride. As Miles Parker drove home, tears blurred his vision, frustration boiling beneath the surface. In the bathroom that night, he stared into the mirror at the storm brewing within him, the warning signs his body was sending loud and clear. This wasn't just about medication. It was about a fight for his life against the betrayal of a family that was supposed to have his back. The game was far from over, and Miles Parker was ready to take a stand. The subtle twitch in Miles Parker's right hand was a red flag. The strange fog clouding his vision felt like a storm brewing. Fatigue weighed heavier with each passing moment. After years of battling epilepsy, he knew these signals all too well. They screamed that his medication levels were alarmingly low. Standing at the sink, gripping the counter like a lifeline, reality slapped him hard. His own sister was playing with his life, and their parents were turning a blind eye. Panic twisted in his chest. How could he convince them before it spun out of control? The week leading up to their court hearing was a ticking time bomb. Tuesday morning hit harder than usual. Miles found nearly half of his remaining medication vanished from the safe. The wretched realization sunk like a stone. The combination had been changed. Someone had been watching him. His mind raced back to that Sunday dinner. Had Savannah Reed followed him to the kitchen? It couldn't have come at a worse time. His bank account was nearly drained, rent had cleared, and his next paycheck was 4 days away. Without those pills, he was facing serious danger. In sheer desperation, he called his neurologist's office. The voice on the other end belonged to Jen, Dr. Walker's nurse. "Can you come in at 11 this morning?" she asked. That gave him a sliver of hope. 3 hours later, he sat in Dr. Walker's office, his energy drained but determination unwavering. The petite doctor with silver-streaked hair looked at him, concern etching her face. "How long has the medication been going missing?" she asked, thumbing through his chart. "About 3 weeks, but it's getting worse. Yesterday was the largest amount taken so far, and you said your medication is secured. Someone changed the combination," Dr. Walker replied, the gravity of her words sinking in. "Miles," she continued, her expression serious, "what you're describing is theft of a controlled substance. That's a serious crime." His palms felt clammy as he stared at them, ashamed. "It's complicated, doctor." Complicated? He was staring down the barrel of family betrayal while desperately fighting for his life. Would anyone take him seriously before it was too late? "I believe it is my sister taking them, but I cannot prove it. My parents do not believe me." Your sister, Dr. Walker, looked up sharply. "Why would she take epilepsy medication? We are in a legal battle over our grandma's inheritance. She left me more because of my medical expenses. My sister is contesting the will." Understanding dawned in Dr. Walker's eyes. "So, this could be an attempt to discredit you, or perhaps worse, to trigger a medical crisis." The possibility spoken aloud by a medical professional sent chills through me. I had not thought of it quite that way. Dr. Walker typed rapidly on her computer. "I am documenting everything you have told me. This is potentially life-threatening, Miles Parker. Without your medication, you are at high risk for breakthrough seizures, which could lead to status epilepticus." "Status epilepticus," I repeated. "A prolonged seizure state that can cause permanent brain damage or death if not treated promptly." She looked at me over her glasses. "I cannot stress enough how serious this is." Dr. Walker prescribed an emergency supply of medication, writing a letter to the pharmacy explaining the medical necessity. She also provided me with documentation of our visit and her concerns about potential medication theft. "I want you to consider showing this to the police," she said, handing me the papers. "And to the judge if necessary. Your health must be protected." With the doctor's letter, the pharmacy provided a 5-day emergency supply, though I still had to pay out of pocket. It was expensive, but it would keep me safe until after the court date. I felt a small measure of relief as I swallowed that evening's dose. The next day, I attempted to show my parents the documentation from Dr. Walker. Medical records. "Really, Miles Parker?" My mother barely glanced at the papers. "This seems excessive. Dr. Walker believes someone is deliberately targeting my medication. She says it is dangerous and potentially criminal." My father shook his head. The tight air in the room was palpable, the tension thickening as every eye turned to Savannah. Suddenly, June, who'd been quiet like a shadow, rose with purpose. She pulled out an old notebook, battered and worn, like it held secrets from another lifetime. "Look here," she said, flipping through the pages. Miles Parker's handwriting filled the margins, dosages, dates, and names. But then something caught my eye. 2 pages, covered in frantic ink. Savannah's name, scribbled there, but not in Miles Parker's handwriting. No, it was their father's. Miles Parker's heart raced. Was this the truth everyone had ignored? Years of blame, of silence. It all crashed down like thunder after a storm. The shocking revelation sent ripples through their family. Nobody had seen this coming. The accusations flew like arrows, but as the tension unfolded, the truth unfurled, shattering the illusion of favoritism that had overshadowed them for so long. "Do you really think I'd risk your health for our inheritance?" Savannah's voice dripped with feigned innocence, tears gathering in her eyes, a twisted sort of performance. But Miles Parker felt that sting of betrayal, the echoes of their father's biased love ringing in his ears. "Look at the timing." Miles Parker struggled to keep his voice steady. "Whenever you visit, my meds go missing." "Maybe you're just taking more than you should," Savannah shot back, her words sharp as knives, but they cut the wrong way. But June stepped in, her voice soothing, contrasting Savannah's hostility. "We need to talk facts here, not filth." The protective grandma stood tall, ready to advocate, ready to uproot the deception that had seeped into their lives. As the night wore on, an unsettling calm settled. It was time for Miles Parker to find his voice, to reclaim his space. Was he just a pawn in their game? No. He deserved to be heard, respected, free from shadows of doubt and neglect. That was the first step to gaining not only recognition but fair treatment. And so, with determination, he began documenting everything: his medication, each visit, the people around him. Every detail became a lifeline. This time, he wouldn't let silence wash over his truth. What if this time could be different? What if he could bring about change, not just for himself but for anyone battling similar struggles? The journey would be difficult, but with June's unwavering support, perhaps he could break free from the family ethics that had held him prisoner for so long. Would Miles Parker rise to reclaim not just his health, but his place in the family? The awakening was underway, but the fight was just beginning. "This is serious, Miles Parker. Your sister sounds unhinged. The worst part is that my parents are enabling her. They always have." Lisa's expression hardened. "Then you need to be prepared to advocate for yourself without their support." "What does your lawyer say?" "Mr. Harrison is concerned. He thinks Savannah Reed's challenge to the will is weak, but he is worried about my parents' testimony. If they claim Grandma was manipulated by me, but she was not. Your grandma was sharp as a tack, and she understood exactly what she was doing." I nodded, feeling a rush of gratitude for my friend's unwavering support. "The court date is Monday. I just need to make it through the weekend safely." But the universe had other plans. Sunday evening, as I prepared for bed, a wave of dizziness hit me so suddenly that I had to grab the bathroom counter for support. My vision blurred at the edges, and my right hand began to twitch uncontrollably. They were warning signs I had experienced before, precursors to a potential seizure. I double-checked that I had taken my evening medication and tried to calm myself. Stress could lower my seizure threshold, making an episode more likely. I practiced the breathing exercises my therapist had taught me, but the sense of foreboding remained. Something was wrong. Despite the emergency medication from Dr. Walker, my body was sending warning signals. As I climbed into bed, I set out my court clothes for the morning and placed Dr. Walker's documentation in my bag. Whatever happened in court tomorrow, I would be prepared to fight for myself, even if I had to do it alone. What I could not have anticipated was just how dramatically the truth would reveal itself, or that my greatest vulnerability would become my strongest evidence. Monday morning dawned with an ominous gray sky that matched my mood. I had slept poorly, waking repeatedly, with the distinct feeling that something was not right within my body. My limbs felt heavy, my thoughts slightly disconnected. Outside the municipal courthouse, tension crackled in the air. The heavy doors loomed ahead. The echoes of heels tap-tap-tapping were a heartbeat of uncertainty. Miles Parker's fingers quivered in his pockets. The warmth from his grandma's hug still felt like an armor around him. Suddenly, another voice sliced through the swirling apprehension. Savannah Reed, his sister, leaned in close, her words sharp as a knife. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" That question hung in the air, a lead weight on his chest. Was she talking about the court hearing or something even deeper? The courthouse doors swung open. What awaited him inside was enough to freeze his pulse. Miles had lived 13 years with epilepsy, a journey defined by shadows and stigmas that too many refused to see. As he dressed in the navy blue pantsuit gifted by Grandma June on his 27th birthday, he felt the weight of the day's significance. Today was more than just about an inheritance. It was a fight for recognition, for dignity. His family's car felt like a trapped space, the air thick with tension. He caught glimpses of triumph flickering in Savannah's eyes as she sat in the front passenger seat. "Did you take your medicine this morning?" their mother asked, too casually. "Yes," he replied, avoiding the truth, the tremor that had begun while brushing his teeth, a whisper of his condition creeping back in. The courthouse itself loomed above him, an imposing stone giant surrounded by the murmur of unseen spectators. Mr. Harrison stood at the entrance, his briefcase tight in his grip. His warm greeting dimmed as Miles's family drew near, tension shifting in the space between them. "She is fine. Let's just get this over with," their mother snapped at Harrison before Miles could open his mouth. As they navigated the marble hallway, Miles caught Savannah whispering something in their father's ear. His gaze hardened, and an unsettling chill ran down Miles's spine. What scheme was Savannah weaving this time? The municipal courthouse felt worlds away, and with every step, he grappled with the unshakable notion that today could change everything, or shatter it all. Would the truth set him free, or would it become the very chains that bound him? The electric tension in Municipal Courthouse 3 felt like static crawling over my skin. Miles Parker froze, a cold sweat blooming as his fingers rifled desperately through his bag. No meds, no backup, nothing. Savannah Reed's eyes gleamed, and her lips twitched, just barely, like she knew exactly what was missing. The judge's entrance echoed off the paneled walls, but Miles barely heard it over the pulse in his ears. Was he going to make it through this? Or was someone counting on him to fail? The municipal courthouse was smaller than he'd imagined. Polished wooden benches, dark paneling surrounding him like a looming shadow. A few legal professionals, suits and briefcases in tow, filled the space. Savannah Reed's lawyer, Miss Reynolds, a sharp-faced woman, waited at the defense table. As Savannah Reed and her lawyer exchanged a look, a chill crept down his spine. What scheme was she hatching now? Taking a seat, Miles felt the weight of a storm brewing inside him. He reached into his purse, fingertips brushing against empty space where his emergency medication should have been. Panic surged through him. He distinctly remembered packing it, checking and double-checking the night before, and now it was gone. He lifted his gaze and caught Savannah Reed's sly smirk. The fluorescent lights overhead felt cruelly bright, a warning against the fear coursing through him. His heart pounded in time with a sinking realization. He was unprepared, standing on this precipice without a safety net. "All rise for the Honorable Judge Catherine Harmon," called the bailiff. They stood as the judge walked in, steel-gray hair pulled back tight. If eyes were daggers, hers would cut deep. She settled into her seat with a single, commanding nod. "We are here in the matter of the estate of June Walker Grace." Her voice resonated, crisp and authoritative. As she spoke, Miles could feel the entire room's focus shift to him like weight added to his shoulders. "Mr. Harrison, any preliminary matters?" The judge's eyebrow rose, inviting scrutiny. "Yes, Your Honor," Miles's attorney began. "My client, Miles Parker, has serious concerns about personal safety and his medical care relevant to these proceedings. These concerns are amplified by the fact that his epilepsy medication has been repeatedly stolen." Miles's heart raced. Would anyone believe him? Would this day bring his long-awaited recognition, or would it bury him deeper in silence? The stakes soared high as the municipal courthouse murmured. He could see Savannah's face twist in a smirk, but he refused to give in. Today was about more than just an inheritance. It was about dignity, and he wouldn't let her take that away. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead as the municipal courthouse felt suffocating. The distant wail of a siren seemed to echo Miles' pounding pulse, reverberating through his chest. His eyes locked on the papers in front of him. His case, his reality, now exposed for all to see. This was it. The moment of truth. The weight of his family's neglect and the unfairness of it all crashing down. Suddenly, the voice of Judge Harmon cut through the tension. According to these records, Savannah was the designated medical proxy during each incident. The room went silent. Miles' heart skipped. The truth, now out in the open, was impossible to ignore. Gasps rippled through the municipal courthouse as faces around him twisted into masks of suspicion. Savannah, standing by her lawyer with that damn smug look on her face, knew what she had done. The carefully constructed story of her innocence was crumbling in front of her eyes. Did she really think she could get away with this? "Your Honor," Savannah's lawyer snapped, "these allegations are completely unfounded, a transparent attempt to discredit my client." Judge Harmon's steely gaze turned to her. "I will decide what is relevant, Miss Reynolds." Miles felt the air get thicker, heavier. His grip tightened on the table as his mind spiraled. The flickering lights felt cruel now, like a cruel countdown. His medication, stolen once again. The one thing that kept him grounded. Gone. Savannah Reed's lawyer was still going on. "My client categorically denies any involvement. This is just a case of Miss Moore exaggerating her condition for attention." Exaggerating. The word stung. How could they still twist the truth? How long would he have to fight for just a bit of dignity? Judge Harmon's eyes finally locked with his. "Mr. Parker, when did you first notice your medication missing?" Miles's mouth went dry. 3 weeks ago, right after Grandma's will. I... His words stuck in his throat. The room was narrowing, the lights too bright, too harsh. He could feel the seizure coming on, trying to crawl up his spine, threatening to take control. He couldn't. He had to finish this. "Miss Moore," the judge prompted, her voice softening, sensing his struggle. The world around him began to distort. But he pushed through, mustering everything he had. He was done being silenced. Savannah's face betrayed her guilt. She was there, he thought, his mind frantically racing. She knew. The air felt thick, buzzing with tension as the paramedics rushed in. Savannah's voice sliced through the chaos. "She's faking it, always looking for attention," she spat. The words hit harder than expected. Miles's vision blurred, but through the haze, his eyes met June's. Grandma. Her gaze was cold, but not with shock. It was determination. She wasn't standing there in disbelief like everyone else. She was standing up, her voice cutting through the noise. "No more lies, Savannah." In that moment, the world around Miles seemed to freeze. June's words flipped everything upside down. All the years of family secrets, exploited conditions, medical gaslighting, and Savannah's manipulative schemes were laid bare. The room fell silent, but Miles's head spun. Was it really happening? Did June just expose everything? As the paramedics worked, the weight of the truth hit harder than any seizure. The carefully crafted narrative Savannah had built, one where she was the untouchable favorite, the one who could do no wrong, was crumbling. The tension. It wasn't just in the room. It was in Miles's chest. Was he finally going to be seen, really seen, for the first time in years? Savannah was cornered now. Her facade shattered, the world could see what she had done. But what was left for Miles? Could the truth, once out, ever be enough to erase the years of torment? Would it bring him the recognition and fairness he deserved? Or was it already too late? The tension in the municipal courthouse was suffocating. The sudden clatter of Savannah Reed's purse hitting the table shattered the silence. Everyone froze. Judge Harmon's voice rang out, sharp, unyielding, demanding the sisters' personal belongings. But it was the gasp from June Walker that cut through the air. Her eyes were locked on a small vial in the purse. A medication vial. Savannah Reed's name was on it, not mine. The shock was instant. The world seemed to tilt. Had I been wrong about everything? Suddenly, the room shifted. What if the story I'd been telling myself, the one where I was the victim, wasn't the whole truth? The atmosphere crackled with tension. My head was spinning. As the paramedics rushed in, I felt myself slipping away. The last thing I heard was Judge Harmon, her words sharp as ice. If anyone has interfered with Miss Moore's medical treatment, there will be consequences. I drifted into unconsciousness, but the weight of those words stayed with me. When I woke up, the sterile scent of the hospital hit me. My vision was blurry, but I could make out Lisa's face, her eyes full of concern. "You really scared us," she whispered, holding a cup of water to my lips. My throat was dry and my body ached. "What happened?" I rasped, barely able to speak. "You had a seizure in court, a bad one," Lisa explained, her voice soft but filled with worry. The memory came back in fragments. Municipal courthouse lights, the feeling of slipping away from reality, the sound of Judge Harmon's voice demanding answers. How long had I been out? I had no answers yet, but one thing was clear. Nothing would ever be the same. Not now that the truth was out. Was I finally going to get the recognition I deserved? Or had I just unleashed a storm that would consume everything I thought I knew? Miles Parker felt a familiar chill surge through him as he faced the sterile hospital room. 6 hours. Where had the time gone? Doctors murmured about seizures, medications, and concern. But what echoed in his mind was the sound of Savannah Reed's laughter, distant and mocking. "Miss Parker, I am Dr. Patel." The doctor's warm voice cut through his haze. "You had a prolonged tonic-clonic seizure. It lasted over 5 minutes." Alarm crept into her eyes, though she tried to maintain a calm demeanor. "We had to administer emergency drugs. Your anti-seizure medication levels were dangerously low. Any idea why that might be?" Before he could answer, a firm knock broke through the moment. In walked Detective Ramirez, tall and imposing, shadowed by Mr. Harrison. "Miss Parker, I'm investigating a case of prescription medication theft," the detective announced. The weight of his words sank deep into Miles's chest, squeezing his heart. Then came the bombshell. "We found 3 prescription bottles in your sister's purse, with your name on them." The air thickened. A part of him had hoped Savannah Reed wasn't the villain in this story. "She's been taking them for weeks," he responded, his tone sharper now. "Small amounts, then more." "Can you tell me when you first noticed medication missing?" Detective Ramirez probed, pulling out a small notebook. Miles hesitated. Memories flooded back, sliding that tiny green bottle to the back of the cabinet, watching Savannah beam under their mom's praise during dinner. The sweet smell of home-cooked pasta never tasted the same after he realized the truth. His heart raced. The realization that his sister, Savannah Reed, a girl who seemed perfectly put together, had been capitalizing on his struggles was gut-wrenching. Each moment they shared, overshadowed by her manipulation. How could he have missed it all? Miles couldn't ignore the scent of rain wafting through the window, mingling with the sterile hospital air. a signal of change. Could this be the moment where his voice finally broke through the noise? He took a deep breath. The night before my last seizure, I noticed my pills were gone. In that instant, hope flickered. Would this revelation finally push back against the years of neglect? Finally bring recognition to his reality? Silence hung like a thin veil. Your sister's manipulation won't stand unnoticed anymore, the detective declared, jotting down notes. Miles felt an odd mix of fear and relief. If the truth came to light, would Savannah's status as the golden child fall? Would he finally break free from the shadows? June Walker, his grandma, had always believed in him. "Stay strong, Miles," she'd say, wisdom lacing her words. Now he could almost hear her urging him onward, a beacon in the storm. Was he ready to face the flood of consequences? Was the truth worth the chaos it might unleash? As the hospital room faded away, one thing became clear. Everything was about to change. Whether it would bring him the recognition he longed for, or the suffocating weight of family disapproval, only time would tell. Miles shut his eyes against the uncertainty, focusing instead on the resilience that pulsed within him. "Let's get to the bottom of this," he said, steeling his resolve. The fight for his truth was about to begin. The sterile hospital room felt suffocating as the tension between family and truth reached its breaking point. Miles Parker had been fighting an invisible battle for years. Every pill that went missing, every accusation dismissed, pushed him further into the shadows of his own life. His sister, Savannah Reed, always the golden child, had played her role perfectly. But now the truth was spilling out, irrevocable and undeniable. "Your daughter has approximately 30% of the expected medication in her system, consistent with missed doses over several days." Dr. Patel's voice cut through the thick silence, each word more damning than the last. The flickering fluorescent light above seemed almost blinding as the gravity of the situation hit them. Savannah's manipulation, the years of neglect, it was all coming to a head. Then, just as the air grew heavier, a slight rustle broke the moment. Miles' mother, disoriented, let a crumpled piece of paper fall from her purse, a medication log. His sister's handwriting was unmistakable, the notes cryptic, the falsified records shocking. The realization hit like a lightning bolt. Had Savannah orchestrated everything? The room froze. Even Detective Ramirez, who had been steady and composed, faltered. The air felt colder now, sharper. Miles' parents exchanged a look, a moment of truth they couldn't hide. His mother's mascara ran down her cheeks as his father's tie hung loosely around his neck. The perfect image of a family shattered by their own child's betrayal. "We didn't know." His mother's voice cracked, a feeble excuse that barely held up against the weight of the evidence. Savannah had been the one pulling the strings, and they hadn't seen it. Anger swirled in Miles' chest as he met their gaze. "I told you," he spat, barely able to contain his fury. "I told you, over and over." The heart rate monitor beside him beeped faster, syncing with the rising storm of emotions. Every confrontation, every moment dismissed, it all came rushing back. But now, the stakes had changed. It wasn't just about him anymore. It was about the truth. Miles could feel the pressure mounting. His sister's web of lies was finally unraveling. But the fight wasn't over. As his parents stood in the doorway, their faces filled with regret and confusion, the question lingered. Was it too late for them to make it right? Miles had been fighting for recognition, but now the real battle was for the truth, and nothing would ever be the same. The silence is crushing, broken only by the muffled hum of fluorescent lights overhead. Miles stares at his trembling hands, the aftershocks of fear prickling beneath his skin. Every eye is turned toward him, yet words hang suspended. No one dares ask the obvious. Outside, rain spits at the window in erratic bursts, jittering along the glass. But what about Savannah's side? What made her snap? What pushed her this far? Do you understand the seriousness of what has happened? His father's voice cracks, barely louder than a whisper. Miles can't bring himself to answer. His mother dabs at her eyes, tears staining her cheeks, the only sound in the room. They exchange glances before his father's voice breaks the silence again. She's at the police station. She confessed, said she never meant for you to get so sick, just wanted to discredit you before the hearing. The words should feel like victory, but they hang like a dark cloud, suffocating Miles. She could have killed me, he mutters, his throat tightening with disbelief. The implications of her actions crash down on him, but it's his own family's betrayal that feels like a sharp stab to the heart. Status epilepticus, the detective had said, his voice somber. It can be fatal. The room grows colder. If Miles had been alone. No one needs to say it. The heaviness of that truth lingers, unbearable. When the detective leaves, the weight of it all presses in. Miles' battle for recognition, his fight against being silenced by his own sister. But now, it's different. The stakes are higher than ever. Savannah's lies are unraveling, but what's left? What's going to happen when the truth finally comes out? Judge Harmon wants to see you when you're better, his father mutters, the words barely sinking in. They've placed a hold on everything, the estate proceedings, until the investigation's over. Miles's eyes narrow. He's been fighting for his truth all along. But this is more than family drama. This is a fight for his life. But is it too late for them to make it right? I was always the invisible one in my family. Miles Parker, misunderstood, struggling against a world that just couldn't see the truth. My truth. My health wasn't something anyone took seriously, least of all the ones who should have been there for me. My sister, Savannah, took advantage of that. She stole my medication. She wasn't just hurting me, she was playing with lives. She'd been profiting off my pain, turning it into her own twisted game of control. I had to fight for myself, because no one else would. But that fight? It wasn't just about family drama anymore. It was about survival. I was in that room, trembling, feeling the cold weight of my body fighting against the truth. Detective Ramirez wasn't there to comfort me. My parents weren't there with any answers. But it was the truth that was finally getting through. You should have believed me, I whispered. And for once, my father's face showed something real. Guilt. Maybe they couldn't undo what they'd done, but for the first time, I felt like I mattered. Grandma June Walker had been right all along. She'd always said, "Your health is not negotiable." She left me more than an inheritance. She left me the power to speak my truth, to be seen. And now, I didn't have to fight alone. But the price? That was high. Nearly my life. As the IV dripped relief into my veins, I could feel the weight lifting, my body slowly returning to its proper state. All the years of being dismissed? Gone. The gaslighting. Over. But in that moment, as the truth finally unfolded, I could still hear her voice. You matter, Miles. You always did. And for the first time in my life, I believed it. But finally, undeniably, they were being forced to face it. 1 week after my seizure in court, I stood once again before Judge Harmon, this time steady on my feet and clear-eyed. The municipal courthouse was the same, but everything else had changed. Mr. Harrison stood beside me, his reassuring presence, a stark contrast to the tension of our previous appearance. Miss Moore, Judge Harmon, greeted me, her stern face softening slightly. I am pleased to see you recovered. How are you feeling? Much better, Your Honor. Thank you, I replied. My voice was stronger than it had been in weeks. My medication levels finally stabilized under careful medical supervision. Very good. Let us proceed with the matter at hand. She adjusted her glasses and regarded the municipal courthouse with an authoritative gaze. My parents sat in the gallery, subdued and uncertain, a dramatic departure from their previous confidence. Savannah Reed was notably absent, represented only by her attorney, Miss Reynolds, who looked distinctly uncomfortable. "This court has reviewed the facts of this case extensively," Judge Harmon began. "What transpired in this municipal courthouse last week was not merely a medical emergency, but the direct result of criminal behavior that endangered Monsieur Adrian Moore's life." She fixed her gaze on my parents. "Mr. and Mrs. Moore, I am deeply troubled by your role in these events. While you may not have stolen your daughter's medication yourselves, your persistent dismissal of her concerns enabled this dangerous situation to continue." My mother dabbed at her eyes with a tissue while my father stared at his hands. As for Savannah Reed Moore, the judge continued the criminal charges against her will proceed in a separate court. However, her actions have direct bearing on the matter of June Walker Moore's estate. Judge Harmon lifted a document. "I have here the last will and testament of June Walker Grace Moore. Having reviewed it thoroughly and confirmed that it was executed with full mental capacity and without undue influence, I am enforcing it in its entirety." She paused, making eye contact with me. "Furthermore, I am adding provisions to protect Miss Miles Parker Moore's interests. First, the executive will establish a medical trust to ensure that Miss Moore's health care needs are met without interference. Second, I am issuing a restraining order preventing Savannah Reed Moore from having any contact with Adrian Moore or access to her residence or workplace." Miss Reynolds rose to object, but Judge Harmon silenced her with a raised hand. "Counsel, your client is facing felony charges for theft of prescription medication with intent to distribute along with potential charges of reckless endangerment. I suggest you focus your energies on her criminal defense rather than contesting these reasonable protective measures." The finality in her tone left no room for argument. As Miss Reynolds sank back into her seat, Judge Harmon turned her attention to my parents. "Mr. and Mrs. Moore, while you bear no legal liability in this case, I urge you to reflect deeply on your moral responsibility. The preference you have shown for one daughter over the other and your willingness to dismiss serious medical concerns nearly had fatal consequences." My father nodded solemnly while my mother wept silently. "This court is adjourned." With a decisive bang of her gavel, Judge Harmon closed the proceedings. Outside the municipal courthouse, my parents approached hesitantly, keeping a respectful distance as if afraid I might shatter. "Adrian, my father," began, his voice rough with emotion. "We do not know what to say." "There is nothing to say," I replied, not unkindly but firmly. "Savannah Reed is facing the consequences of her actions. And now you are facing the consequences of yours." "We never thought she would." My mother started. "That is the problem," I interrupted. "You never thought about me at all." The sunlight poured in through the windows, casting long shadows over my freshly unpacked apartment. For the first time in forever, it felt like I was breathing again, without the weight of constant judgment hanging over me. The soft beeping from the medical monitor was no longer a prison, but a reminder of how far I'd come. My hands brushed against a worn journal, tucked away in a drawer I hadn't thought to open. It was Grandma June's, her secret weapon in the fight I never knew existed. Pages full of silent advocacy, letters to authorities, begging for justice. In that moment, everything clicked. The fight was never mine alone. My anger softened, not because I was forgiving them, but because I finally understood. Their denial was rooted in fear. Fear they could never admit. And for the first time, I felt the weight lift. The peace was bittersweet, but it was mine. I stood there, staring at the words Grandma had written. "Whatever it takes," my dad had said, but the truth was they'd never really seen me. Not until the court forced them to. Savannah Reed, with her cunning charm, had always been the golden child. And I was the inconvenience, the illness they swept under the rug, until they couldn't anymore. It had taken everything crashing down for them to realize. Savannah Reed, now facing felony charges, was the least of my worries. But I couldn't ignore the sense of power creeping in, not in a vengeful way, but in a protective one. I had control. The legal battles were far from over, but I wasn't afraid anymore. The trust established for my medical care meant I'd never have to beg for the treatment I needed. It was a promise Grandma had fought for, and now it was mine to keep. "How does it feel?" Lisa asked, dropping onto my couch after a day of unpacking. "Having your own place? On your terms?" "Surreal," I replied, "but it's good. Really good." The victory was quiet. Not loud or celebratory, but it was enough. I was free. My family went beyond not understanding. I said, my heart heavy. They didn't just miss the mark. They fostered a toxic environment that could have harmed me. Dr. Walker leaned in, her brow furrowed with empathy. "The road to rebuilding those relationships will be long if you choose to take it," she said softly. I wasn't sure I did, at least not yet. Meanwhile, my parents kept sending their carefully crafted apologies, letters and voicemails, each more remorseful than the last. I read every word, listened to every message, but I held my distance like a protective shield. I needed space to heal, to face not just the physical toll of everything, but the emotional wounds, too. Then, one evening, a formal letter landed in my hands. Unlike their previous half-hearted attempts, this one cut deeper. "We failed you," they wrote, the words stark against the paper. "Not just in the matter of your medication, but in recognizing your needs throughout your life." They mentioned family counseling and committed to understanding their harmful patterns. I didn't rush to respond. Instead, I folded the letter carefully, tucking it away in my desk drawer. A tiny seed of hope had been planted, but it was fragile. As for Savannah Reed, the golden child turned scapegoat, she found herself facing a reckoning of her own. A plea agreement sent her to a rehabilitation program, 6 months in a minimum security facility, followed by probation and community service. The prosecutor called to inform me, asking if she could reach out. "No," I replied firmly. "Not now. Maybe not ever." But then I received something I never expected. A handwritten note on heavy judicial stationery from Judge Harmon herself. I braced myself as I read her words, the scent of rain seeping into my room, coating each line with a sense of gravity. "We see you," she wrote. But the silence shattered when I peeled back the signature. Savannah Reed's name was boldly penned, followed by a single line. "I knew, and I'm ready to talk." Suddenly, everything shifted. The family drama was no longer just about apologies. It was about exposing hidden secrets, truths waiting to be unraveled. Staring at the letter, unease twisted in my chest, as if all the gravity in the world pressed in. Could it be that my sister, the one who thrived on manipulation, was ready to finally face the music? An unfamiliar ache surged, a mix of dread and intrigue. Would we finally piece together the fragmented history of pain, or would her newfound honesty unravel everything? The answer hung in the air, charged with possibility and uncertainty. Miles Parker sat on the cold linoleum of the hospital waiting room, the buzz of fluorescent lights drowning out Savannah Reed's phony tears and Mom's tense whispers. The sharp smell of antiseptic clawed at his throat, memories of lying there, invisible, pretending the ache in his chest was just another Tuesday. The weight of June Walker's warm hand on his shoulder cut through the chaos. Her lemon-scented shawl brushed his cheek, a reminder of real comfort. That moment sparkled in his mind, highlighting the painful contrast between being seen and just being managed. Fast forward to now. A formal letter landed in his hands. Unlike the previous half-hearted attempts at reconciliation, this one cut deep. "We failed you," it read, stark against the paper. "Not just in your treatment, but in recognizing your needs." Family counseling was mentioned. They wanted to improve their toxic patterns. Miles didn't rush to respond. He folded it carefully, tucking it away. A small seed of hope planted, but it felt fragile. Meanwhile, Savannah, the golden child turned scapegoat, found herself facing her own fall, but this time it was serious. A plea deal sent her to a rehabilitation program, 6 months in a minimum security facility, followed by probation. Miles felt a strange mix of dread and relief. The prosecutor called, asking if Savannah could reach out. "No," he replied firmly. "Not now. Maybe not ever." Then he received an unexpected letter on heavy judicial stationery from Judge Catherine Harmon herself. As Miles read her words, rain's sweet scent wafted through his window, coating each line with gravity. "We see you," she wrote. But the moment shattered when he noticed the bold signature. Savannah's name, followed by, "I knew, and I'm ready to talk." Suddenly, everything shifted. The stakes escalated. This family drama was no longer just about apologies. It was about uncovering hidden truths. His heart raced. Could his sister, the manipulative darling, dare to face the music? An unfamiliar ache surged, a mix of dread and intrigue. Could they finally unravel the fragmented history of pain? Or would her newfound honesty tear them apart? The answer hung in the air, charged with possibility and uncertainty. "Miss Moore," the letter continued, "I have presided over countless family disputes, but few reveal such a stark failure of parental duty and sibling respect. Your dignity throughout this process has been commendable. I've referred your case to the Epilepsy Foundation. They might use it anonymously in educational materials about medical gaslighting. Would you like to participate? Your experience could inspire others." Each word wrapped around his heart, filled him with intrigue, and sparked an unexpected sense of purpose emerging from all that pain. That night, as he prepared for bed in his new apartment, he caught a glimpse of himself in the bathroom mirror. The person looking back was different. Not just physically healed, but somehow more solid, more present. Fighting for his life, he had claimed a new kind of authority over it. The medication bottle on his counter was a reminder of his survival. As Miles swallowed his evening dose, he felt not resignation, but respect for his own needs and boundaries. His health was non-negotiable. For the first time, he had the power to ensure it was treated that way. 6 months after the municipal courthouse seizure that changed everything, he sat across from Dr. Marissa Chen in her sunlit office, now a sanctuary where he could unpack his family trauma. "How are you feeling about the support group tonight?" she asked. Nervous, he admitted, the weight of anticipation heavy in the air. Would he be ready for the honesty that lay ahead? The restraining order remained in effect, a boundary I was not yet ready to reconsider. "Do you think you will ever reconcile with her doctor?" Chen asked. I considered the question carefully, as I had many times before. I honestly do not know. What she did was not just a betrayal. It was dangerous. She was willing to risk my life for money and attention. That is a fair assessment. Dr. Chen acknowledged reconciliation is never an obligation, especially when trust has been broken so fundamentally. After my therapy session, I met Lisa for lunch at our favorite cafe. Our friendship had deepened through the ordeal, her unwavering support a contrast to my family's failures. "So, you are really doing it?" she asked excitedly. "The epilepsy awareness speaking gig." I nodded, stirring my iced tea. The Epilepsy Foundation asked me to share my story at their fundraiser next month. Judge Harmon will be there too. That is amazing, Miles Parker. From municipal courthouse collapse to keynote speaker in less than a year. Well, not exactly keynote, I laughed. Just a 10-minute personal testimony, but still it feels important. The judge's suggestion that my experience might help others had planted a seed that had grown steadily over the months. I had begun by anonymously sharing my story on the Epilepsy Foundation website, then participating in a panel discussion on medical advocacy. The response had been overwhelming, with many people reaching out to share similar experiences of having their conditions dismissed or minimized by family members. "Have you decided what you will say?" Lisa asked. "I'm still working on it," I admitted, finding the balance between honesty about what happened and not turning it into a family takedown. "You know, your compassion amazes me," Lisa said, shaking her head. "After everything they put you through?" I shrugged. "It is not really about compassion. I just do not want my story to be defined by what they did. I want it to be about what I learned and how I moved forward." Miles Parker sat silently in the community center, a storm of thoughts swirling through his mind. The letter from Judge Harmon still felt warm in his hands, the words of validation echoing in his ears. For once, someone saw him, really saw him. But here, in this room full of strangers, could he finally speak the truth about his family? The room hummed with a quiet energy, the faint smell of rain from the street outside mixing with the scent of coffee. Savannah stood by the door, phone in hand, eyes darting nervously around the room. Was she watching? Was she waiting for him to mess up? Miles Parker couldn't tell anymore. It was then the facilitator, Janelle, broke the silence. "Does anyone want to share their story tonight?" Her voice was soft, yet piercing, pulling Miles Parker's focus from the chaos swirling inside him. The room held its breath as everyone turned their gaze toward him. Savannah, lingered near the doorway, her usual self-assured smirk replaced by something darker. She didn't want him to speak. She never did. Miles Parker's heart raced. Would he say what he had been holding back all this time? The truth that had been buried under years of family silence? As the room waited, the quiet seemed to stretch, thick with expectation. Could he finally break free from the lie they had all been living? The silence was broken only by his own breath. Would he speak, or would he remain invisible in a world that had long refused to see him for who he truly was? The weight of the moment was suffocating. Miles Parker stood at the kitchen window, sunlight spilling across the counter, casting a soft glow on the empty space. His phone buzzed in his pocket. June's name flashed on the screen. His stomach knotted. Savannah Reed's laughter echoed from somewhere down the hall, like a distant memory or a warning. Miles Parker's finger hovered over the message. Should he read it? Or would that mean everything was about to change again? The room felt heavy, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. Every moment stretched. Was this the moment he had been dreading? Or the one he had been waiting for? He took a deep breath and tapped the screen. "Remember, you're stronger than they made you feel," June's message read. Her words were simple, but Miles Parker could feel the weight of years behind them. He glanced toward the door, where Savannah Reed's shadow fell across the hallway. Was she watching? Waiting for him to fail? In the meeting room, Miles Parker had felt the room close in on him. Strangers. Judgment. The weight of his family's neglect sat heavy in his chest. But when Janelle asked if anyone wanted to share their story, Miles Parker hesitated. Would he say it out loud? The truth? About Savannah Reed? About the betrayal? About being invisible for years? His heart raced. He couldn't stay quiet anymore. So, he spoke. He let the words spill out, raw and unfiltered. "It wasn't just the health stuff," he began. "It was everything. The gaslighting, the manipulation. My own sister." The group listened, nodding in quiet recognition. It felt like a crack had opened, and for the first time in his life, Miles Parker wasn't alone. After the meeting, the relief was almost physical. Walking to his car, Miles Parker felt lighter. The weight of silence had been lifted. The next morning, his mom sent a text. "Thinking of you today. Hope you're taking care of yourself. Love, Mom." Simple, direct, no guilt, no demands. Just acknowledgement. Small steps. Weeks later, Miles Parker stood outside the bank, his new life beginning to take shape. He had financial security thanks to the court decision. He'd even set up an emergency fund, just like Grandma June always said. Maybe he couldn't change everything about his past, but the future, that was still in his hands. Would it all be enough? Would the past finally stay behind him? Or was this just the beginning of a much bigger fight? The day before the Epilepsy Foundation fundraiser, I stood at Grandma June's grave, clutching a bouquet of her favorite daisies. The cemetery was serene, sunlight filtering through the oak trees, casting gentle shadows on the ground. "I wish you could see me now, Grandma," I whispered, laying the flowers against her headstone. "You always said I was stronger than I knew. I think I'm finally starting to believe you." I told her about the support group, my therapy wins, and the speaking gig that had me so excited. Sharing these milestones felt like a conversation we would have had together. I finally realized I wasn't angry anymore, at Mom and Dad, or even Savannah Reed. I was just free. The evening of the fundraiser arrived, cloaked in perfect early autumn weather. The hotel ballroom buzzed with energy, filled with doctors, advocates, patients, and hopeful families. Just before the program commenced, Judge Harmon spotted me, her navy suit reminiscent of her judicial robes. "Miles Parker," she greeted me warmly. "You look wonderful." "Thanks for getting involved," I replied. "It's made such a difference." "I'm glad," she said, a knowing smile in her eyes. "Sometimes you find purpose in life's toughest moments." When my turn to speak arrived, I approached the podium feeling surprisingly calm. The faces eagerly looking back at me were attentive, their expressions free from the judgment I had feared for so long. "My name is Miles Parker Moore," I began, my voice steady. "For 13 years, I've navigated life with epilepsy. For most of that time, I believed my condition was a burden, something to hide or apologize for. My family reinforced that belief through years of dismissal and actions that nearly cost me my life. I poured out my story, raw and real, from Grandma June's unwavering support to the terrifying municipal courthouse seizure and its aftermath. Would this moment change everything for me? Or would old shadows linger, eager to pull me back? Each word felt like liberation, each breath a step toward reclaiming my truth. As I paused, the air tinged with anticipation. Could this be the breakthrough I had been chasing, or the setup for another heart-wrenching realization? What I learned through this ordeal was not just about epilepsy, but about self-advocacy, about the non-negotiable right to have my medical needs taken seriously, about surrounding myself with people who reinforce rather than undermine my well-being. As I spoke, I noticed a few people wiping away tears, others nodding in recognition. Today, I am not defined by what happened to me, but by how I responded to it, by the boundaries I set, the community I found, and the voice I am still learning to use. My grandma once told me that health is not negotiable. I now understand that this applies not just to physical health, but to the health of our relationships, our self-respect, and our sense of agency. I concluded with words I had carefully considered. If you take one thing from my story, let it be this: believe yourself when others do not. Trust your experience of your own body and mind, and know that you deserve care that honors rather than dismisses your reality. The applause that followed was warm and affirming. After the formal program ended, several people approached to share their own experiences of medical gaslighting and family denial. Each conversation reinforced what the support group had begun to teach me. I was not alone in my struggle, and my voice could help others find theirs. Judge Harmon found me as the event was winding down. That was powerful. "Miles Parker, you have a gift for advocacy." "I'm still learning," I admitted, "but it feels right using what happened to help others." "That is how healing often works," she replied thoughtfully. "We transform our wounds into wisdom that others can use." As I drove home that night, I reflected on the journey of the past 9 months. From the terrifying municipal courthouse collapse to this moment of purpose and community, I had traversed a landscape of betrayal, vindication, and ultimately reclamation. The legacy. As I parked outside my apartment, my heart fluttered with anticipation. Grandma June had left me more than just a valuable inheritance. She gifted me the strength to stand firm in my truth, even when those closest to me turned a blind eye. My phone buzzed with a text from Lisa. "So proud of you tonight. Your grandma would be too." A warm smile spread across my face as I typed back, "Thank you for believing me when no one else would." Stepping inside, I breathed in the familiar scent of lavender lingering in the air. I followed my evening routine with the gentle care Grandma June instilled in me. Each medicine went into the lockbox, a reflex now more than a necessity. That sense of peace was something I hadn't felt in ages. My health was no longer a battleground. It simply existed as a part of me, honestly tended, neither hidden nor exaggerated. Can you relate? Have you ever had to fight to be believed about something essential in your life? As I sorted through the pills, the quiet of the night was only broken by the distant hum of the city. The ache of feeling unseen faded away. I felt liberated, a kind of boldness surging through me, replacing the weight I had carried for so long. I could almost hear Grandma's voice echo through my thoughts, reminding me that health isn't just physical. It encompasses how we're treated, how we feel, and how others validate our existence. Feelings of triumph washed over me. I was finally owning my narrative. My experiences mattered, and I had a voice that deserved to be heard. If you've ever faced doubt about your reality, drop your story in the comments below. Trust me, your experience is valid. As the evening deepened, I felt that old familiarity with Grandma's support wrap around me like a treasured blanket. This was only the beginning. I'd learned to advocate for myself, to reclaim what was rightfully mine. Thank you for being part of my journey. Remember, the strength to speak up is within you, even when it feels impossible. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.